Yes, and there we are again with a new episode of Dance Jams. Today we are going to talk about muscle learning. Yeah, it's a new word actually, muscle learning in dance, but we do it on purpose because we know always muscle memory already, most of you, but we add some new words to that muscle exploration and muscle manipulation. Now, I'm curious what it all is. I've discussed it in length with my colleague Ton Greten. So, we of course would not do this episode without him. Let's see if he's there. Ton, are you there?
I'm there, Sean. So very interesting. Muscle
Very
learning.
muscle learning.
Yeah.
I'm trying to switch to, yeah, there you are. Yeah, I tried to see muscle learning in dance, muscle exploration, muscle memory, and muscle manipulation. Now, there's a lot of muscle in those words, but Tom, this is one of the things where you and I found each other, right? I remember that we
Yeah.
were talking about it, and I said to you, and you had that thought already too, of course. I said, the one thing that I don't like, that was not a nice way to say it, I admit it, was muscle memory. There's so much more about muscle memory. And you were already in the track without using the name that came later to always manipulate what you already know. And so we came on this whole concept of muscle exploration, muscle memory, and muscle manipulation. A lot of M's in there on purpose, and it
Yes, yes.
actually is written fully written out in your jam method. And it's fascinating. Even when we talk about it today, we still discover actually new things in that concept, why that works so well. Very enthusiastic about that
I don't
topic.
know. In our dance world, it's common to speak about muscle memory sometimes,
Yeah.
but in the say daily life, muscle memory never heard about. Muscle memory has the muscles a memory then?
Yeah.
I said no, it's a little bit different than your brain, but still, yeah, the science has proved that it exists,
Yeah,
and
actually,
they call
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, actually, the whole body has a memory, but
yeah,
mostly felt through. Yeah, we think that body mechanics only happens through them. That's another topic that we probably will do, Tom. That it's only through the muscles, but it's of course way more than that. But it's a nice way to look at the muscle memory. I thought that muscle memory was a well-known thing, but we discovered actually that was not even true. But
yeah, correct, Sean. I don't know how it is in America. Here in my daily life, when I speak with the people around me, no, there's some of them hear it for the first time.
okay, I don't know. I just hear what. And I know that's just my character, Tom. I should be a little bit nicer in my head, at least, right? Because I hear colleagues around me sometimes say, "Okay," and then just you train it, and then it becomes to muscle memory, and then you never forget it again. And I think, oh, okay, what you say is probably true, but if is that the approach you should follow? That I always questioned. I said, what if you learn something that is maybe not so healthy for yourself? And we see that in dancing, we do a lot of things like overstretching the knees and overstretching the joints. What if that becomes your muscle memory? Then you have to unlearn it. And then you came with your research, which is really nice. We come back to that, but I remember that from our discussion before. Really easy, really easy. In Dutch, we would say ezelsbruggetje, but I don't know
Yeah,
how that translates in English.
I don't know.
Something really easy to remember, like a little memory trigger. But muscle memory and movement, that's what we are going to talk about. How do you
Muscle
learn
memory,
about?
movement, manipulation,
Yeah,
3M.
yeah, muscle memory exploration. And it would be all too long to put it all in the title, so I made it a little bit shorter. For some reason, Ton, you either stare at me for a long time or you stand still. So I just keep talking until Ton starts to move again. But yeah, that's what we are going to talk about. So muscle memory is, if you write about it, is a fascinating and neurological but also a physiological process that allows individuals to perform complex motor task. To some extent, we need muscle memory. For instance, if you drive a car, I am from Europe, so we drive a car with stick shift, as we call it, right? And if you don't have the muscle memory how to shift those sticks, then you constantly have to look at it. And so that would not be on how to use the pedals, when to put down the throttle, when to use the brake, and when to put the clutch when you have a stick shift. You don't, if that's too technical, forget about it. But anyhow, you have to also put down the clutch. But when I drive a car like that, I don't even think about it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
couldn't see for a moment, but I was just explaining that muscle memory in itself, also in normal life, has also its use, right? For instance, driving a car, if you really have to look at every thing that you do, that would not be a good thing because that would be dangerous. Now I have a certain muscle memory how to handle a stick shift, if that's something you still use. In Europe, a lot of cars still have that. I don't have to think about that conscious. I can pay attention to the traffic while handling my car. So in that sense, muscle memory is a good thing. But it took a while before that becomes almost a little bit an automatic pilot. And for relatively simple movements, it takes about, Tom knows the number, it takes about times before our body starts to know it.
yeah, 300 till 500 times
To do it? Ah, that's quite,
to
I
do it.
thought
Yeah.
that's,
Just
yeah, that's
simple
a lot.
things. But when once you have a habit,
Yeah.
you can put a zero behind it, 3,000 till 5,000 times, if you want to bend it and again to practice again. So it will be
Wow.
10 times more.
10 times more, yeah. Yeah. And then you also found out that it takes you probably about 4 to 5 weeks to make a simple
No,
movement.
yes, three till 6 weeks.
Still 6 weeks
And yes, for the simple one,
for the
but for the most coordinated ones, probably 3 till 6.
month.
And for each person is this different.
Of
Some
course.
of them,
Of course.
the
So in
duration will be less, and for the other one, the duration will be longer.
yeah, of course, everyone it's of course of the background and the experience that people have. But so to as a dancer, for a simple movement to make it your own, right? That's another way to say it. To make it your own, that takes you 3 to 5 weeks and about 300 times or something to practice it. So
Minimum.
Ton and I thought that's actually, if that is true, then you have to change it, which takes even longer, and then you go through the whole cycle again and again. So what Ton already was doing is the moment you start to learn a movement, you also learn how to change that movement. That could be just to change the quality or just to change anything you want. And what he discovered actually, that you don't have to break these habits anymore then, because you already know a lot of variations of that same movement. Yeah? And that became known as muscle manipulation. Then
Yes.
he and I talking about it. Oh, but before you actually know a movement, you actually automatically start to do something. Can we that maybe make a more conscious process? You have to think about what's the movement about, explore it a little bit. And if you make that a conscious process, then you flip actually that whole process of what's known. There's books about it, and I'm looking on my left side because I think I have it here. Next time I probably show it. Whole book out muscle memory, how important that is in life. That you need to
Mhm.
commit everything to memory. Where we say, yeah, memory is a really good thing, but the to be flexible with it is actually maybe a different thing.
Yes, that muscle memory, that's quite important, Sean, for dancing, because when you learn a new dance, like I never did ballet. I did once ballet or twice, but my daughter, she's fantastic in it. But anyway, that's so many repetitions to come to a certain point. That would be a complete new language for me. That's why you can then first, as a human being, you go also first to the exploration. You get some, if you follow the teacher, you get some empathy. You try to follow it, but you try also to understand it. You explore what he is doing with his joints, with his muscles, and then you find some idea about it. And but in the beginning, it's like honey. When you go through the honey, it's more slowly process. And then after a while, it get more fluid because you repeat it. And it's also better for the development process to do it in small steps. Every day, it's better to do every day 15 minutes or half hour or 5 minutes than one time a week, 2 hours.
For sure.
Because, yeah, better every day a little bit than one day a long time. It's also cognitive when you are learning for a new language or math or physics. Learn not in one day for your cognitive, but spread it during the week and do little by little. And the same is for conative, for doing for the body, conative and cognitive. So body and mind, and both have the same procedure, small steps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
better to do multiple steps, small steps multiple times than try to scram it all in once a week for a longer period of time. Yeah, there are definitely a lot of pros of muscle memory. For instance, you will improve your performance through a repetition of the same movement. We would not negate that at all. You also have what we called, Ton already used the word cognitive, which has to do with the mind, how you think. So if you don't have to think about it so much anymore because you have repeated it a lot of time, it reduced the cognitive load. That's the more technical term for it. So that means you free up your mind to do other things like driving a car. If I do this from muscle memory, the mechanics, then I free up my mind to pay attention to the traffic. So that's a good thing, right? So over time, you get faster skill and acquisition and retention. So your physical adaptation to that same movement comes bigger. But there are also downsides of muscle memory. And we also notice if you only practice muscle memory, because our body and minds they are efficiency machines, actually you hit a performance plateau way faster. In fact, actually you decline. You don't change the movement but do it the same thing over and over again, actually the quality will decline. There's also, because we pay less attention to it, that there is a higher risk of injury, because there bit by bit you pay less attention to the movement you make because you rely on the muscle memory and you're increased of injury. If you only rely on muscle memory, then that people become very hard in learning new things, because then they say something to you, Tom, yeah, that's how I've been doing it the whole time and now I have to do something else. They become a little bit less flexible in learning new things. And the last but not least, you can also be overconfident in it. Oh, I did it already 1,000 times, Ton. I don't have to do it one more time. I know it already. So that's the downside. And we look, and there probably are more, Ton. You discovered maybe a few more. And that's the reason why we thought, hey, there must be more to that. We must be able to
Yes.
overcome that.
Yes, I will speak about in a minute about that one.
Mm-hmm.
There is also a correlation between muscle memory and multitasking because I said last week to some women and children that multitasking not exist. It exists in a computer because the computer can multitask, but our brain can only give attention to one thing. You can switch quite fast from one to the other, but when you are in the car driving and you have your muscle memory, or we are walking on the street, maybe this is a more example, a simpler example. You are walking, so your muscles have that memory, and you can speak. But you can only multitask if you have, how I said, a motoric. It's only in the motoric repetition You can do it like piano playing and speak, but you have to do it many times because if you not have that coordination in the muscles, for me it wouldn't be possible because I don't play piano. And so I cannot speak and play piano, but some people can. So they have that muscle memory and can still speak. So the multitasking, it's only on the motoric things what you're doing in your daily life, what you repeat many times. Some people can cook and speak. I don't, I'm not so good cook to make my food, so I cannot speak. So my all my attention will go to the cooking. And this is a little bit what muscle memory can do. So you go on the automatic pilot. And this is what Sean said a few minutes ago. That is also a risk. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no,
can
it's
you
absolutely
repeat the
true.
risk, Sean?
Yeah.
Can you repeat the risk again?
The risk is actually go way further than just the injuries, right? The risk is because that we don't pay attention too much what we do. We talk about dancing here, so we're talking about moving our body, and we need to be very conscious about how our body moves to prevent the risk that we can have. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of discussion now. People say, no, I can do muscle, I can do multi. Yeah, you can do more things at the same time. There is this American expression that actually points to exactly what Ton says, because I can chew gum and talk and walk at the same time. Chewing gum, I don't have to think about, and walking, I don't have to think about either.
The
But
motoric
yeah,
action.
exactly. So if you listen to when we did this podcast about concentration, attention, and focus, we're talking about a focused action. We're not talking about an unfocused action. So I already said the pro of muscle memory, it has cognitive reduced cognitive load. That means you actually don't have to think about it anymore. Right? Reduced cognitive load is a little bit of a fancy word of saying you don't have to think about it anymore. But here's the thing, right? The fastest growing thing of getting into an accident is actually texting while you're driving because we think we can multitask.
Cognitive
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
driving.
And then,
Um, uh,
and then, and then,
motoric.
and I had it last week, Don. I thought, oh, I can quickly answer this. And I can type without really looking at it, but my mind is at the text. Although my eyes are still seeing, but they're not focusing. And this car in front of me had to stop so quickly, and I literally almost ran into it. It was one of the scariest thing, and I should literally put, because I have a tendency to look at my phone when I get bored driving. I seriously am, and I see a lot of people doing it on the road, and it's absolutely dangerous. And I still have to not do it. And maybe I should put my phone in the back because we can't.
Yes. The,
And some
the
from
strange thing. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Continue, Sean.
No, I say some people. I see some of my younger students. They can text while they are talking. They text with one thumb. And yeah, you get better at it with the motoric skills, the mechanics of the motoric skills, but really giving 100% focus. Because if you ask the person, like, okay, what were the last two words that I said? They can't answer you. They can pretend that they listen to you while texting, but they're not really listening.
Yeah. But it's fascinating how it works with multitasking and the muscle memory. But while I was dancing, I thought there must something coming after it. And because when you do a muscle memory, then it's fixed. So actually, how you want to improve it, you can only improve it to manipulate it. That's what I thought. So after a while, I came then to the word muscle memory manipulation. And I used the muscle memory as a basic, as a base. And then once I can handle it, I try to break it again, but not completely, small things.
Yeah, it's more like
And
adapting, modifying. Yeah,
yeah, because then I have enough space, I have the structure, but enough space there in my brain to be more faster than my body to manipulate it. And that was really fascinating because they never know what they expect. Actually, it was always different. But I had so much control over it because I did it so many times that I was able, that I could manipulate it. And mainly is it the form, but also in dynamic. That's one step further, even. Very interesting. I wrote it down. I put it in my book, and that was MM, muscle memory manipulation. So I explain it shortly. We can say more about it. But I thought when we have a muscle memory and we have something after it, there must be something in front of it. So I had the discussions with Sean, and on many discussions, we came to muscle exploration. And that was nice because the muscle memory, it not arrive immediately to a muscle memory. You explore first from the existent movements what you already have, and you make maybe some new combinations or coordinations from it. You manipulate that one again, and you explore it, and then suddenly you get quite happy with the movement what you have at that moment and the routine, and then you go practice it, and then it gets a routine, a muscle memory. But when it stays a routine, then the personality is quite fixed there in it. You have not a lot of space to move and to manipulate it. So actually the highest what you can get after the exploration, after the memory, muscle memory, you get the manipulation. And then once you can handle that again, the circle starts again from new.
Yeah, it starts anew. Most of you know that I spent a lot of time in learning environments from the work that I did. And one word that I came across, which has directly to do with muscle memory manipulation, is that we actually stimulate what we call adaptive learning. So you modify ingrained movements constantly. And in fact, we try to use only ingrained where it's useful, right? As a student, you develop, your quality of dancing becomes higher and higher. We don't want you to constantly think that you have to unlearn things. It's more modifying. We call that adaptive learning, and you create people get more flexible when they think about that, because the context of wherein you dance could be different all the time. If only if you're a stage performer. No stage in the world is exactly the same like another stage. Tom wrote a lot about it. Could be not only the size, but could be the temperature. It could be the surface of the floor could be slightly different. If you rely too much on the only muscle memory, but you don't have an adaptive learning mentality, you get this resistance for you. Oh, I have to adjust. Now it's the adaptation needs to be the habit, not the sequence. Does that make sense, Ton? You make a habit out of adapting yourself constantly. And like Ton and I like to do, we make a habit in feeling uncomfortable, because in the uncomfortable situation we learn the most. We try to not
Yes.
be comfortable in the situation. And comfortable situation is the muscle memory. We try to find comfort, which is a very human thing. But if we are performance artists, we cannot allow that, right? We have to constantly adapt. So we call that adaptive learning. Plus, over time, when Tom makes a choreography changes a little bit, and people who have learned this the way we do it, they can adapt very easily. And oh, okay. So that is the back end, right? But the exploration is so fascinating, right? Because we use that also in other contexts. We come to do that. So we have to think more about what mechanics we use to make a certain, without just only doing it, we learn more about the mechanics that is useful for a certain movement. Tom wrote that already down. Can only be three, but to what
That's
extent?
right. Yes.
Exactly. But here's the thing with exploration, there's a direct correlation what we talk about your proprioception. When you
Yes,
explore the movement, you explore and enhance also your proprioception. Otherwise,
yes,
it's just about the movement, and it cannot be only about the movement.
no, absolutely not, Sean. We will speak in 1 minute about it because you said a lot. I wrote, I
Yep,
take
Tom,
a
that's why I
pen and
stopped that.
paper. Yeah, actually, the muscle memory is not fixed, what most people think.
It's not fixed at
It
all.
all, not all, and also the manipulation, it's not always also to manipulate it in the same way because then it gets a muscle memory again. So the manipulation is not completely different, but you adjust something in your routine as a dancer. It is flexible. So once you have that fixed movements or program or choreography, look where you can find where you can manipulate it. That makes it more exciting. That's quite subjective, what I say, but for me, it's more exciting because I see when somebody can manipulate it at that moment. Because you have also another partner, not only your dance partner or your group, more your team, but you have also the music. And when the music say, and you are freestyling, and the music say completely something different, and you are not aware of it, not aware about it, you stay in the muscle memory. So you have to adapt to it and or use take the sounds and make it symmetrically in movement, or you ignore it really to be aware and you want to ignore it. And both you can see it if somebody is really aware as a personality about these issues from the music, from the sound. If you do a routine and you do just the muscle memory, I can see that also. So I believe it or I don't believe it. And just to go blind and continue in it, that's not an in my way, it's not the way to do it. But anyway, there you are free to dance, and it's not just the trick what you're doing. It's not just a puppet on that floor, mechanically doing things there automatically. No, it's something what lives. You are artist on that floor. You paint on that floor live with your with your body parts. And now we come to the proprioception. Put 1 point more there. Some people has also stress to change and manipulate it, Sean. I feel there's also with some children that are less or more autistic and they say, no, it has to be like this and this and this. So the able to be more flexible in it gives for them stress. So they need to have it more static and keep it a little bit more longer with them that they can do the same. And the adapting process is for them slower. And I give them time, and a day after or a week later, they come to me and said, "Oh, actually, it's wonderful, the changing." So some people need more. They have a longer duration. I don't want to say time because time is always there, and I make it complex for myself. When I say time, everybody understand that. I hope. I assume that. But I speak about duration. And one person, and duration is very personal. One person needs a longer duration, and the other person, it goes quite fast for them and need a shorter duration. And to coming back to the proprioception, Sean, and this is really interesting what you said there. In our normal life, and not exist normal life, actually, in our daily life, in our daily life, we use our proprioception. Proprio, your own property, your body, and ception, the perception and awareness of that body. And Sean said it already a few minutes ago. It's only about bending, stretching, and rotating. And if you get more aware during the day of your body parts, how you grab your pen, or how you go sitting, how you take your keys, which body parts you use for that one, when you go to the shower and you want to wash, how you wash. And actually, Sean said in the Dutch podcast, try when you are right handed and you do your toe teeth always with the right hand, try to do it with the left hand. You will improve the uncomfortable feeling to do it with left, you will improve it then. And it gets more fluid after a while. But if you never try it or practice it, you will not make the change and you make it for yourself comfortable. And you go back to your muscle memory from the right handing instead to improve that left handing. Could be. It's just an example.
Yeah. Yesterday after the Dutch podcast, we always record our podcast in two different languages. One is Dutch because Ton and I are both native Dutch speakers, and then we do the same topic. We do that in English, but it's never the same podcast. It is the same
Yeah,
topic. So if you can listen to both, either with subtitles or if you speak both languages, I would always say listen to both. But after that, I was wondering, Ton, where is that term muscle memory actually coming from and why is it so popular? So it's actually
mm,
very young. It's only in the 19th century where we find back the word muscle
correct.
memory. And it came when we had to do a lot of repetition in specifically in the industry, right? Where there were these conveyor belts and they had to do the same movement all the time. And sometimes you see those movies where people are on a, in Dutch we say lopende band, right? But it's called a conveyor belt in English. But where they do the same thing and they can do it so fast because that's true muscle memory. Typing, blind typing, finding these letters, blind playing piano to some extent is all muscle memory. Only actually in last century it actually came also into the psychology where I actually thought it was first, but it's not. It came just from that what I said. And then later on, we start to look at it from a neuroscience point of view. Now, but here was the interesting thing that I found yesterday. So we wanted to reduce the thinking of the people. That's scary, right? So we think, oh, we need to reduce the thinking of the people. So we start to say skill, repetition, and learning. And so the drill and practice became really popular, right? Drill and practice, drill and practice. So the education made it because it's easier to explain to students and it's easier to structure a drill in curriculums. And we saw it there. Let them do them over and over again. And it's easier to measure, Tom. Yeah. So it came out of ease. And then there was some sort of a myth, the myth that you get mastery through repetition. And this is what I also say to other students, by the way, is Malcolm Gladwell. I follow this writer. He wrote The Tipping Point. He wrote other books, very interesting, but he also wrote about the 10,000 hour rule. You need to do about the thing 10,000 hours before you get some proficiency. But people translate it in practice make perfect. No, practice does not make perfect because perfect doesn't exist. Practice makes progress. That's what Ton and I say. It doesn't
Yes,
make
practice.
perfect, but it makes
Yes,
progress, right? And do it until it becomes automatic. Drill it into your muscle. So these words became very popular, right? And then was a cultural bias because people think if you work hard, you get results. You don't get rewards, you get rewards to discipline, not creativity. You hear always Ton and I say creativity. This is form before function, function before form, all leads to the same point. Interesting, right? So it minimized the role of emotions, sensory and reflective processes. So we want to rule out the emotional expression, which we cannot do in GEM. That's where your personality is. So people like us, but we are not that famous. But there are other people who wrote about this opposing muscle memory. And let me go through Feldenkrais, functional integration. We also looked at that from a movement point of view. Van der Kolk, which I studied a lot because of the trauma healing, right? Wrote about it. Peter Levine wrote about it to go a little bit beyond muscle memory. Some people who wrote about neuroplasticity. We talk about that later. A very interesting topic, actually, what I found yesterday. So, what you reframe matters, and there you come on CAF. Your exploration is bringing it more in your awareness. Your memory is we integrate in ourselves, but the manipulation is becoming more adaptable. So if we rewrite the gem around it, this is the material we write about it. So sometimes Ton and I read things and then we try to bring it to gem. Sometimes we think about it and then we start to research and then we find, hey man, we are not the only one thinking about these things. There are smarter people than us already thought
Yeah,
about it. Why is people not
absolutely.
listening to it? Why are we still thinking about drill and practice, drill and practice? So people take over false beliefs and keep going with that while science has already moved on. But here's the thing, Ton, and I'm talking too long today. I'm sorry. But it's all coming from comfort. People are looking for comfort and safety, and so they have a hard time to let go. What I saw when I came to your classes and you immediately did is that we didn't call it muscle manipulation, but that constantly changing what you did before with an ID, not just let it go, always with a little bit of an ID. And I've said that for the longest time. That's why I always said it's a dancing mind and a conscious body, right? We
Yeah,
have to constantly create.
yeah.
But muscle memory has a function, which we pointed out. It's just not the only thing.
Yes, we try to stimulate the audience. So when you use your senses and you watch or listening to us,
Yeah.
or you look to dancers, this is why if you dance just on routine muscle memory, it get predictable. So when you get predictable, it gets maybe a little bit flat, could be, because I know already what will come. And when you repeat your repetition, your muscle memory on actually always to do hit it with the same muscle tension, then even the dynamic will not change. So the whole routine will stay the same. But if you could only already change dynamic, I will explain dynamic, give you some context. Dynamic, it's changing a situation with some of the body parts or with all the body parts or with a single body part with a different muscle tension. Try just to change the muscle tension and you change already the situation. And when you change the situation, it gets more dynamic. So I did it vice versa. So it can only works like that. And if you repeat and it says like that, it get a repetition, always the same muscle tension in the same form, yeah, it gets predictable. So try to manipulate it. And it starts with your 5D. That's what we said in the other podcast. 5D is the cognitive, and the cognitive influence the other 4D, time, 4D, and space, 3D. When you think it's interesting, listen to our other podcast, what we have to tell about it. We have it in our season 2, I think. And
Yeah,
yeah,
we did.
that,
Yeah.
that's
But we
what else?
also Yeah, we also said
Yeah,
we're going to make a special podcast around 5D,
yeah,
which integrates your cognitive abilities and your consciousness into it. Yeah,
yeah.
sounds like soft, but also science backs up us here.
Yes, that will be interesting. I wanted to say something about muscle memory, Sean. When we build on stamina during 2 or 3 months, we have our stamina and we did our power training, muscle training, and we did our flex mobility training. for our flexibility. And we practice that for 3 months or 4 or a half year. And then we go on holiday. And what the science proved is that you lose more quickly the power and the flexibility, the mobility, but the stamina stays longer with you. And when people then start to run again, they get injuries because the stamina is there. They feel quite well because the stamina is there, but the muscles are not trained anymore and they go more backwards. So muscles and mobility takes longer, needs longer, a longer duration to come on the same level again as the stamina before. So this is why it's important to practice really slow in the mobility and in the power training when you was on holiday. The stamina will be stay longer with the body, that is proven. Yes, and the same with coordination. When you come back and you play piano or violin, or we as dancers, our instrument, our body, we use also the power, the mobility. So start slowly to practice because the stamina that goes more faster, you will gain that more faster back. But the power and your muscles and your joints need to adapt in the tempo of the stamina. And if you go like crazy, you get injuries. So this muscle memory will not say that you can keep it in the power and in the mobility. So slowly. And when you learn a new coordination, practice 7 times at least slowly. And then you can tempo, you improve the tempo and then you can handle it. That is what
That's
I
a
find yesterday, Sean.
Yeah, that's I think that's a really nice addition to prevent injuries because specifically if for what kind of reason you had to stop for a while, right? What you say actually
Yes.
your muscle strength goes down very fast, faster than you think, but your stamina and the memory of of the movement stays. So you actually believe that you can do the movement to the same extent than a few weeks ago, and that's when you actually can cause yourself an injury. You have to rebuild it up again to do that, and that's a great addition to know that your stamina, the memory stays there, your cognitive of the movement stays there, but your muscles they have gone down back, and you have to rebuild that up to the same of a different level. The more conscious you becomes about your body, actually, you probably feel it. Very experienced dancers, they know their body really well. I went to the doctor just earlier this week and I said, I feel my energy has changed a little bit. And in this case, I'm really talking about my energy. We have
Mm.
clarified that too, because I'm on the whole day, but in the evening, I'm just so tired. And I said, why that is. And I'm with this physician already for 20 years, Tom. And she said, what the crazy thing is with you dancers? I said, so why are we crazy? She said, you do so much, you're so conscious that everything that's slightly different, you can feel it. So the people who constantly do the same thing every day, they go to the office and they go home, sit on the couch, they hardly change when their body changes. They increases maybe body fat or other habits. They don't even know it. But because we're so conscious, busy with how we do movements, every little thing we do. So it that comes back to the proprioception. If you are busy with exploration, memory, and manipulation, your proprioception increases. And so you can actually maintain quicker a healthier body because we are more aware when something changes. I thought from a physician, I heard that last Tuesday. I forgot to bring that into the Dutch podcast,
It,
but I think that's
it,
fascinating.
yeah, it's absolute right, Sean,
Yeah.
because we developed by our brain and our body by doing and try to research new things and try to develop us. And we cannot see that we get every week an inch or a centimeter wider, but after a half year, you think, oh my God, my body, what I did. So try to be aware how you can develop that body. And also, it's proven by science, if you change your lifestyle in your muscle memory, what you're doing in your daily life at work and at home, if you would change that and be more aware of it, you get at least 4 to 5 years in age that you get older. That's proven also. And but if you do the easy way and you think, oh, everything must be comfortable, and you get already stressed when something, yeah, what you have to do. I had also this week in my home that's quite private. I have to do the electric new, and I did like 25 hours. But the beginning it gets so slow, and I didn't know exactly what how I must do it. So somebody did. I have to do it like this, and I have to do many repetitions because it was my lightning. What I did, and I started with 20 minutes, one lamp. The next, because I had 100 lamps in my dance studio, and at the end I had needed not 20 minutes, I needed 5 lamps, 5 minutes per lamp. So this is why I'm improved, and now I did it 100 of them,
Yeah.
and I'm quite happy because I get out of that muscle memory, out of my laziness, and I try to improve, and it goes faster and faster. And now I can handle it, that muscle memory. Now, this new muscle memory for me was first exploration. And then I try to manipulate it, how I can do it faster and faster, still focused, and it worked. So that was private. But for dancing, it works the same. If you learn a pirouette and you never did ballet and you must do a pirouette for the first time, yes, of course you will fall. Maybe you are so talented, you can do the form how the trainer asked to do and coach. You are really a unique person then if you can do it in once. But to do it on stage under pressure, that's also again different. So you build on that muscle memory, but still you can even manipulate that period after it.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
You need all the stages. Sorry, Sean. I wanted
No,
to say you need all the stages of exploring, of memory, of manipulation
yeah,
from the muscle, of course.
yeah,
Muscle learning.
yeah. In the Dutch podcast, you mentioned it a few times too. So it's definitely something that I think we should mention in this episode too. Is only muscle memory, there are definitely good things in there, but what we also discovered by reading about this is actually the whole system of exploration or framework of exploration, memory and manipulation actually keeps you younger. And that sounds really weird, but we looked at that, right? Learning and discovery that prevents that you stay still. Keep researching, keep learning, keep discovering new things, keeps your brain and yourself younger. The other thing that we already know is, and explained it in the Dutch podcast, so I do it immediately, is neuroplasticity. You know, there was a while last century in the 70s and the 80s that we thought that once the brain is formed, it cannot change. But now, the last 15 years, we know that we can constantly make new neural paths and new neural connections. Those are the terms that we use in that. But you need to stimulate it. It just doesn't happen by itself. It happens when you learn new things. Then you make new paths, and that keeps the brain younger and more active. This the third thing that Ton mentioned every time because it's so important. Enhanced proprioception and adaptability actually risk the, what a lot of elderly people come across is they fall more. But if you have more enhanced proprioception and adaptability, we actually fall less and get less injuries. And last but not least, this whole thing about manipulation and exploration, it increases your chemical household, right? You get more dopamine, in your body, and that motivates. There's nothing else that motivates you, it's just that chemical thing. So it keeps you more excited about things that you do. And if you measure that with a child, is always full of dopamine because they're always exciting. That keeps them young and fresh. And they sometimes ask, literally us, we cannot say that from ourselves, of course, Tom, that we look young for our age. But we hear it a lot. Wow, guys, you girls look so young for your age and you do all these things. We sometimes say we don't know what it is, but actually we know what it is because this is
Yeah.
the way we lived. This is the
I
way
do.
we, yeah,
Yes, I
this
do
is how we
sometimes a
are.
joke, Sean. I do
Yeah.
sometimes a joke. I make myself 10 years older. I said, they ask how old you are. I said 70. 70? I'm 60 actually. They get a shock, but it isn't. But
No, but it is true. I know, and there is, of course, the the genes of your parents, and there's a lot of
yeah,
other things in our environment that we maybe picked up without even knowing, like the habit of healthy eating. That's something my mom, without knowing it, always in did us, and so yeah, I'm lucky that I have a healthy body and a mind. I'm really lucky with that too. But there's also a lot in what Ton and I do, like the research and the enthusiasm that we have over these crazy things, like how this is worked on. When we found something new and then we call each other and we are enthusiastic about it. Yeah, I think that keeps us a little bit childish. If you do ever a conference with us together and you see we are a little bit like two childs on the floor doing crazy stuff. And so it's also fun to explore and manipulate your movements and see where it can take you instead of
mhm.
thinking it has to be that way. So that's what I want to give in the end. If anything you want to achieve, do know that what we talked about, exploration, memory, and manipulation, actually also keeps you young. So I cannot say any more, Ton, because we're reaching the end of the podcast, and I'm sure you have something to say at the end.
Yes,
So,
absolutely, Sean. When you are grown out with your brain, that's around 25 years. That's about the age what the science said. And the neuroplasticity, it's actually see it like that. You learn a new word like proprioception, and then your brain, the plasticity, makes one path in it in the high grass. It's very high, that grass. And when you walk once through that high grass, then there is a path, but not so clear. But if you repeat proprioception many times in small steps, then the path gets deeper and deeper. And then it stays with you. And it's not only for the brain, it's also for the body. It's vice versa. Both you need. And till you dying, you still are able to learn. And this is why they call it neuroplasticity. Maybe go a little bit slower, but still build on for buffer, because when you get ill or when you get dementia or Parkinson or whatever, build already the buffer on, because you invest also for your later age. And that's also already proved. But when it happens, but it goes slower then. That because you are training your brain and you training your body. And this is why people also react on movement and also music, because it's in all areas of our brain. And yeah, that's and the wording and the movement, it's a part of the brains. But still, yeah, invest in your proprioception, invest in your muscle learning, exploration, memory, manipulation. Invest in it and make it yourself not too easy. Keep it for yourself challenging for the future and invest in your future. And we love dancing. So for us, we can use our vehicle for dance, but you can also use it for running or another sport, for piano playing, whatever you are want to develop.
Yeah, nice, Don. Totally agree. With that said, we came to the end of another episode of Dance Gems. As always, there is so much more to say about muscle manipulation or muscle memory manipulation, muscle memory exploration. That's where I should start. Memory. No, muscle. How do I say it? Wow, how was it again?
Mus-
Muscle memory. Huh?
Manipulation.
Yes, manipulation, the three M's. I said it so often today that I lost the
Yeah.
memory in it. That's kind of funny.
M.
But yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah,
lost the memory.
the M, yeah,
M, yeah, the
yeah,
memory.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it. But it's actually in Dutch, it sounds a little bit better almost. I think muscle learning is a good word that we need to adapt in Gem. Well, the
Yes,
spear,
absolutely, Sean.
muscle learning as the overall thing, muscle learning, and then we under it we put
Yes.
exploration, memory, and then manipulation. I think that would be for the next
Yeah,
edition of Gem. Would be
yeah, that's a muscle learning. What
muscle
I
learning.
searched yesterday in the Dutch word book,
Yeah,
I couldn't, I
dictionary,
couldn't,
dictionary.
I couldn't find it.
It.
I couldn't.
No, that's what I
It,
said.
it,
I think we came on a new word, Ton.
yeah,
And but so we had a few new words coming into the book, and then if the word doesn't exist, we just define it, and then we make.
it's a neologism. That's a
Yes,
new word.
that's right. We did a
Neo.
podcast on that too. When we make new words. So, anyhow, forgive our craziness at times, but come back to our podcast and revisit them. Maybe they don't make a lot of sense now, but at some day you might think, "Hey, that actually that actually makes sense now." So, this was another episode of Dance Gems. Today we talked about muscle learning, right?
Yeah,
Muscle exploration, muscle memory, and muscle memory manipulation. There you go. I
yeah,
said it, Tom.
yeah.
There you go. I said it.
Thank you very much, listeners, if you get till the end for listening,
Yes.
and up to the next podcast.
And up to the next podcast. Yes, indeed. Muscle learning in dance. That's what we talked about. I'm going to start the music. And while I say goodbye to my good friend Ton, I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for being with us, of course, Dancy. I'm sharing your wisdom. And
Yeah,
we'll see you next time.
thank you, Sean. Till next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Yeah, and while we're going away out of the podcast, let me tell you where you can find us: Spotify and on Apple with Dance Dash Jams. We are on YouTube at Ton Greten /podcast. We have our own website, www.jam.dance/podcast. We also are on Facebook in the groups The Dance Jams. We are now also on all kind of other channels that I probably need to put in here as well. So see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
See you next time. Bye bye.